And we are now live, so that's a start. All right, there's the two of you here and we're live. So we're already about 15 minutes ahead of last year's schedule. Okay, so that's a good start. Now I'm going to just take a look at getting the rest in here. All right, so just give me a minute. I've got a whole list of names to go with, and I'm just going to put this out onto the student forum as well. So give me one sec. Here we go. Regrettably, you can't actually get these links until you are in action, which does make it much harder for others.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. And we'll see how that goes. I'm just dropping it into all the agreed places quickly, which gets a bit mucky. One of the first things I'd like you to think about while I'm calling everybody up is what would be some of the first things you would do to get everybody going. What would you recommend they think about at the start of this process?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, and we should be joined by more in a moment as I add, and we'll see how many we can take in here before it says no. I'm having to copy and paste across in case you're wondering. I tried to get clever this year and actually put everybody into a group. I thought I could get the whole group in, and you can, just not on the broadcast version. So where are we now? Slowly bringing people in, I think. Maybe we won't be ahead of schedule after all. Well, I must say, I said this year to everybody, you know, something will go wrong, and we're going to be fairly relaxed about this. Think of it as kind of enhanced authentic learning.
Absolutely.
So just working through here. Becoming a bit concerned that no one else has made it in. Makes me think the invitations are not getting out.
Oh dear.
Right. Getting there, I'm sure.
It's showing on my phone that you've invited Catherine and Andrew and Deborah and Tom. So hopefully these things are being transmitted.
Well, there's Andy as well.
Yeah, Tom.
Incredibly laborious, isn't it? I keep thinking every year, I'm sure that this will be the thing that they fix for next year. And they always alter something else, but never quite manage this. There's bound to be some easy way around this that I just haven't discovered yet. All right. Okay, guys, I'm just going to check on the Google Doc and on Twitter to see if people have in fact found where we are, and if they're all under control and asking questions. Okay. Right. Well, it would appear that it's all quiet on Twitter.
Yes, I don't see anything.
Yeah.
And someone can see and hear me. I appreciate that. Whoever popped that into the Google Doc. The anonymous cormorant. Okay. Right, I'm just going to let them know. Someone's... How can you join via PC instead? Okay, if you are... if it's coming in on your phone, it probably means that the phone isn't synced to the PC right now, your profile. What I could suggest to the anonymous cormorant is, in fact, to shut down on your phone and to open Google Mail on your PC, and then it should be available in Google Mail. Give that a try and let me know how it goes. All right.
Excellent. We've got a joiner. That's great.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Is that Margaret? Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
Oh, good to hear you. This is Gresham and Ralph. Ralph, this is Margaret.
Hi.
Hi, Margaret.
We're
Hi.
having fun. Margaret, this happens every year that we try something. There's always a new twist to how things are done.
Hi, Paige.
Right. Hi, Margaret. Okay. And I'm just wondering, is there anybody who's trying to
Hi.
watch this on YouTube and not getting the broadcast?
Hi, Paige.
Hi, Andrew. The Google Hangout is quite tricky to monitor as well, but let me go back there and see if I can pick them up. Right, I've got the Google notifications up as well now, but that might be a channel too far for me. Okay. Here we go. Hi, Katie. I see you in comments. Hi, Deborah. Brilliant. Alison is in the room now. Hi, Andrew. Catherine, are you sorted yet? Hi, Alison. Okay, could I suggest that we hop into the Google Doc for commenting and questions, just so that I can narrow down my channels. And I'm going to ask that if I miss questions that are coming through, and I look like I'm ignoring you in one of the channels, could somebody tweet to me on the H817 hashtag, because then I can find it a bit easier to track everything. Okay? So if someone can monitor the Google comments, and if you think I've ignored anything for too long, then tweet it to me and I can pick it up there where it's easier to pick up. Okay. Right, so we've actually got a lot outside of the room from the looks of things. If you've received the invitation on your phone and not on your computer, open your Google Mail and let me know if that works for you. So open your Gmail and have a look in there. Otherwise, click straight through from the link I put at the top of the Google Doc. Okay. Hi, Alison. Can you hear us loud and clear?
Hello?
Fantastic. We can hear you.
I can hear you now. Sorry, I couldn't hear you before. It's Alison here. Hi.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, I think we're ready to start rolling. If you're stuck on your phones, anyone, I hope that you can still hear us and see us and throw questions at us. So I don't want you to stress out about not being able to get in via the PC. I'm quite happy for you to do it on the phone. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask one or two questions just to kick things off, and then we'll take it from there. And the first thing that I think I'd like to hear from Ralph and from Gresham is there hints and tips for how do you get started? What is the most important thing at the start of this learning design process? Once you're in your team and the week begins, what do you think we should be tackling first, or doing first, or taking care of first?
Do you want to kick that off, Rolf?
Well, you can if you want.
Okay, go on. I would say something that we were advised to do last year and turned out to be really important, I think, was try and get some sort of live call or live communication. Get the group together, try and fix a time so that you can discuss what context you want to use, and also perhaps start to schedule calls for future weeks. Certainly when we, in the group I was in when I was tackling this project, weekly calls turned out to be really important. There's just something about that live conversation that enables so many issues to be resolved really efficiently. So I think that would be my first suggestion. Ralph, do you want to? I don't know if you have any different experience there.
No, I was thinking the same. So plan at least a meeting as soon as possible, like a video call, and also for the reason to engage with each other, to know each other a little bit better, because the weeks before or the months before, you only know each other from forum discussions. But it's also very nice to know a bit more personal things of one another, of each other, and as well think of your own learning needs. What is it that you want to achieve? What do you want to get out of this project? Not only, let's say, finishing and creating the website you have to create, and the artifacts or learning objectives or activities on it, but as well, what do you want to get out for yourself of this, because that also helps in the end to divide let's say, certain tasks or roles in the group, I think. Yeah.
There's two things I want to pick up on in what you've just said, and in fact a question's already popped up on this as well, and it's exactly what I was wondering as well. They're asking, for your live calls and for getting to know one another, did you use OU Live or another piece of software, Skype, Google Hangouts? What are your suggestions? What did you use?
We used Google Hangouts, and I was not familiar with Google Hangouts. So for me, it was a bit difficult in the beginning to understand how this system works. The nice thing of it, I think what I experienced is that when it's on, it's quite stable. And you can be on with a group. It's very easy to be on with a group. When someone talks, this person pops up in screen. It worked quite well. Yeah. And yeah, I think that was, I was not, I think not there in the beginning, because the first week or first 2 weeks I was abroad and for work, so I couldn't take part of it. So it was decided, but for me it was perfect to learn how to deal with this technology.
We used the OU Live system, and that also seemed to work pretty well. I think it can be a little bit painful logging in, certainly last year, so you kind of needed to allow yourselves, allow ourselves sort of 10 minutes or something just to make sure that we could log in. But it was also reasonably flexible, so I was away on holiday one week, but was able to log in just with an iPad, and you could use an iPad to join that call. So I think there are some choices here, and perhaps linked in with the point that Ralph made about looking at what you want to get out of the project. I'd encourage you to take a few risks. So try some things out, because, correct me if I'm wrong, Paige, but certainly last year the majority of the marks, the vast majority of the marks at the end of the process, at the end of the exercise, were for the process itself rather than the finished product. And so there's some opportunity here to try some things out if you want to. And for example, I'm not really a Facebook user, but we decided that we would use Facebook as a way of communicating between our weekly calls, and that worked really well. And having that sort of mobile friendly communication worked well. But it's good to try these things out, because there's no downside to it, really.
Okay, so if you communicate just once a week then in some kind of live synchronous session, how else did you get things organized? What else did you do? What worked? What didn't work? Don't just give us the successes here. Is there anything you tried that you think, well, I wouldn't do that again?
For me, there's nothing I would not do, what I won't do again. Sometimes it can be that some people had problems with the technology, for example, with sounds or microphone that it didn't work, and then they could not take part in the conversation. But the person who was leading let's say the project made fantastic notes, and it did not mean that someone is, let's say, out of the group, but at that time couldn't take part. So let's say technologies have to work in order to make it work. That is a bit the thing. Besides the Google Hangout sessions, we had the forums. We used the forum a lot, which was very good. We did a lot of discussion work in the forums, but at some point you get such long threads that it was difficult to catch up sometimes, or especially with the last assignment to write a reflection, to look back, where you know that somewhere was written this and this, but where can you find it? So sometimes your page, you did something with the forum to set some threads, make it shorter, or put some things somewhere else. That was really a help as well. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's something that I always forget to tell people, so I'm really glad you've raised that, and that is that once we get going and once we're underway and those forums start to explode a bit, if that's the primary place for discussion, that just ask me and I can rearrange and split threads and move things. But yeah, your point is well made, Ralph, that it's worthwhile keeping the communication quite organized in that forum, so that it's well titled, so that if you're going off onto a new topic, you actually start a new thread, so that it makes it much easier to search for later.
Yes.
Thanks for that. There's two other things that you've just said that I want to flag up as well. Sorry guys, but this is really rich stuff you're giving us. The one was your point about making really good notes of meetings, because not everybody is going to be there for every meeting.
Yes.
Which I was looking back at last year as well, and we were talking about this, and that is that we need to have some faith that when we're not there, the rest of the group will continue safely without us,
Yes.
And that we can re-enter as well.
Yes.
How would you suggest, what did you need from those notes? What should be done in terms of those notes? Who should be responsible for them? Should it be one person? Where should they be kept? Any ideas, thoughts? And again, not just how you did it, but also if anything didn't work for you, what you'd suggest for the future.
Question?
I'd say that I guess doing the things that perhaps you might do at work around just being really clear in the weekly meetings. So our weekly meetings would often review what had happened over the last week, try and agree what needed to happen the next week, and that's wasn't necessarily straightforward, because we've got some quite detailed guidance that's supplied by the Open University. So it's just making sure we understood that, and then off the back of that, agreeing who was going to do what and by when. And I'd say one thing that's really important there is open and honest communication. That for example, if you know that you're going to have a really, really busy week at work, you don't sign up for some stuff that you can't deliver, and you just and that the group is open to people saying, look, actually this week, guys, I just completely stuck, because it's much better to be open at the start of the week than it is to fail to deliver something later on in the process. So just that clear accountability, but people being honest about what they can and can't do in particular weeks is really important.
Gresham, thanks for that, because I think that's something that we can feel under pressure to participate and to make our contribution and end up promising what we can't deliver, and that, as we know, puts a much bigger burden on other people if they hadn't planned to do that in their week, and suddenly they're picking up balls that have dropped. So yeah, thanks for that. It's really important to be clear up front. You also said earlier something about the process, and that it being more about the process than a finished product. Firstly, yes, I agree with you, and that is, it's about the learning process, and about how people have worked through the process is where the majority of the marks go, and how they pull it together in their report, the TMA, rather than what the website looks like. That's a secondary thing. What did you feel about the process as you were working through it, given that it's a particular process, a particular design process that you offered? Well, more than offered, required to follow.
Go on, Ralph.
Okay. What I think is interesting is that a lot of times I recognize that in my own work as well. We start with the end. We start with, we have to design a website. We have to design a learning program, and this learning program should be like this, this, and this. But this process, you start very open, and it's very well guided and structured, let's say during the weeks. But you don't start with the end product. So in the beginning, it can make you feel uncomfortable because you don't know exactly where it's leading to. The only thing that you know is the assignment you got. For example, reflective learning, what we had. So that's the only thing, and you have to design something which is constructed out of the steps you're going through in this process. So if I would say, if someone, or if in the group is, let's say, a consensus about, oh, we have to make this and this and this, and you're in the second or third week, it can't be. You have to then hold back a bit and look at what you have now, and just be patient and go to the next step. Because in the end, it will, let's say, come out of what you've created as a group, what you've constructed, let's say, the meaning you've constructed, the knowledge you gained, and constructed towards, let's say, what it has to be in the end.
Agree completely with what Ralph said there, and I know we as a group struggled with exactly that in the first week. There was a definite tendency to think, oh well, this is how we'll solve the problem, and I think, so what are we going to do for the other 6 weeks? And it's really just getting a grip of the fact that it's about the process, and somebody from the year before gave us some really good advice, which is to say, just trust the process. It will, as Ralph says, it will lead you to a good solution.
Yeah.
But I have to say, the process itself, I think personally it does have credibility, and I've found it useful since last year in my work at my sort of day job. So I think it's a good process.
Actually, Gresham, both yourself and Ralph have mentioned that to me as we've talked about getting together tonight. Could I ask both of you if you could give us a quick idea on how you're using it and what you're doing with it? I think seeing it as an authentic process is really helpful.
So I've had 2 experiences in this sort of area. One before I did the course, actually, where we started along similar lines to the process. So starting to sketch out personas of the stakeholders involved, and then we really stumbled because we didn't have the, and I now realise afterwards, it's really, we stumbled because we didn't have the next steps in the process, and I think we would have had much better outcomes if we'd known really that these were good next steps. Since more recently, since we've done the course, I've been involved with some conversations with where another party was, another organisation was proposing a particular solution, but without any of the foundations to underlie that. So they kind of jumped to a solution which we really weren't sure was optimal, and the process provides a way of articulating where their solution might be falling down, and also a way, or a constructive way of addressing those issues.
Thank you. That's Ralph.
Yeah, one example is, for example, at the moment, I'm designing together with colleagues and professionals in the field, medical and nursing professionals in the Netherlands. We're designing a massive open online course, which will take place on the 30th of January next year. So we're quite on time with starting preparing it. And we go really through steps on, let's say, of needs assessment. We had brainstorm sessions, surveys on the professionals, on the kind of topics they would like to, or themes they would like to see in this course. The professionals during a meeting wrote the personas. So I didn't write that with my colleagues, but the professionals wrote personas, which I'm going to use later on in the process with the designers, the workshop designers, which are my colleagues, and let's say an advisory board of an educational design and professionals from the field. We can use the personas as well to look back on is this person able to follow, let's say, this workshop with this kind of content, with these kind of technologies. So this process was very helpful to get an idea on a new approach on how to design a big online event, which will take place, well, let's say, a bit further in time. But well, yeah, I think that's a very good example on how we use it at the moment, how I'm using it at the moment. Yeah.
Thanks for that. I think one of the things that is hardest for people when they're coming to it, especially because we are all educators and we've been designing lessons and sessions and courses and everything for some time, is that this is a very systematic process. And at first I think that can be quite hard to accept when you feel, well, I don't need to do this. But hearing what you're saying about applying it now in your work really, really resonates with me with where I'm finding I'm having to go back sometimes and re-look at personas because I've gotten sloppy.
Yes.
And things break down because I haven't done things systematically.
Yes. Yes.
So thanks for that. And to hear you're doing it on a very big scale.
Yes. Correct.
So that's... Ralph, when you've finished for that MOOC, you will tweet it to all of us under the hashtag, the H817LD hashtag, won't you?
Okay.
Right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So that we know where to come and assess the learning design process.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just going to take a look at any questions, but do Alison and Margaret have anything they want to raise and ask right now, or any comments?
No, I haven't.
I've got a question. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes.
Perfectly.
Yeah, I've actually put it on the template. So Paige, when you get there, this is a repeat, and it's a really practical question. It's about the roles and responsibilities in the project, and I've already just been scanning ahead and listening, and I may have missed this at the beginning because I wasn't here right at the start, but there's thinking about the team leader. I've heard you mention a leader role. What's the difference, and what kind of responsibility in terms of additional time and focus does the leader need to have, the team leader need to have, and how did you nominate that person? So just either of you, please. I would really appreciate some kind of thoughts on that. So is there a good process to go through? Have you got any advice on how we do that?
I think ours was, I don't think it's necessarily a great process, but it was kind of a pragmatic thing in the sense that we were looking for somebody who's willing to do it and who thought that they would have the time to do it, because we anticipated that it would take some additional time, particularly I think in the early weeks as you're kind of kicking off and getting things started. And those criteria, I think, were sufficient to lead us to somebody. I don't know, Ralph, whether you had a more systematic process.
No. For the choosing the team leader, I think the team leader, there was somebody who would like to do that, and it was clear for all of us, which was fine.
Yeah.
No problem. Let me think. What else? Yeah, maybe on the different roles, it is also, again, I come back to what do you want to get out of it yourself. and also discuss with each other what are each other's qualities. What are you good at? What do you already have experience with? Because that others can learn from your experience, and it can also, let's say, keep things moving a bit. If you're good at, for example, making a video, then go ahead, make a video, while somebody else maybe has no interest in it at all, or skills or ideas how to do it, and maybe you can do it with the two of you, for example. So it's free. You need to feel free in how you're going to arrange it. It is not something that I mean, even for example, you can think of, let's say, changing roles after 3 weeks. Somebody else is going to try, because if there are people that want to try to be, let's say, a team leader or a project leader, or how you call it, you can have the opportunity to try it.
That's a really good point. I think that you're not necessarily signing up to a particular role for the entire project. I think we adopted that approach actually, which said, person who committed to being the team leader did so for a couple of weeks, and then and actually was doing a fantastic job, was enjoying it, and so continued to do so. But and that was what everybody wanted. But you don't have to sign up forever for this.
Yeah.
Good. So you're not signing your life away for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Or is everybody in the team doing that?
We rumbled through it. Yeah, that's it.
It feels as though we're on the precipice, but I don't know. We'll see.
I think the word I heard most often last year was roller coaster.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
No, that's good, right?
Yeah, it's good. Why not? Makes you feel alive.
Can I ask, Ralph and Gresham, something that, watching from the outside, I've always wondered, and that is, I think it can be quite hard to decide what you're good at and what you should be boldly stepping forward to offer. Did you find that hard? And if so, how did you get over that?
I didn't find it hard, but maybe it's also because of the work as well. I'm doing the experience, and that I have to create and make a lot of things which I'm sometimes not familiar with, and work in project groups, and well, you just go for it and make the best out of it, and of course try to read theory-based as much as possible, together with stakeholders. You create, you develop. So at some point, and I think within our group, it is more, people were very enthusiastic, and that also helps a lot. If you're enthusiastic and you don't know that much of a certain thing, then yeah, why not? You have to do it. So let's go for it. So that's also a pragmatic approach. And I think what really helps is if you have these live meetings, that's, for example, once a week, and you keep engaging with each other, and I think engagement is very important, then you can discuss these things with each other and see if you experience difficulties, or maybe you are insecure about doing some things, or performing a certain role, or making some artifact or learning object. I don't know. The idea is to create kind of a team, and within this team, you're all learners, and you're working towards an end product, and that makes that you carry it together. That's what I want to say in the end. Yeah, I think that's so. And I think people are capable of doing things maybe they have never done before and never thought of, maybe, and it's a good try. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most people who go through this are very surprised at the end of it by what they've done.
Yeah,
So,
I think so too.
yeah, I appreciate you encouraging people to just give it a go, just try something new.
Yeah.
Gresham, did you find it hard to identify what you could offer, or did you also feel what the heck?
I think there were probably a few things last year. I'm not sure if it's the same this year, Paige, but last year we'd done some mini projects with one or two other people, and so there were one or two others in my group with whom I'd worked before, and so sometimes they were able to perhaps give that outside perspective about what I might be good at and what I might not be good at.
Yeah.
I think I probably asked myself three main questions as I was, thinking about different things. Firstly, does anybody else want to do this particular task or this particular aspect? Secondly, do I think I would be good at it? So is it something that's in my comfort zone that I could do relatively easily? Or is this something that's much more stretching for me, and so would I like to have a go at that? And so the things that I did tended to be a mixture of, there'd be some things that were clearly in my comfort zone and some things which were really demanding for me, modified by whatever anybody else wanted to do.
Yeah. Okay.
I also would like to address something what we were talking about earlier about let's say the communication structure. How do you get things going? And at the end of the module, almost I think in the last 2 weeks it was about something like that. We found out from each other that everyone actually had their difficult moments in the process. But in the end, nobody knew of each other, and that people felt sometimes frustrated or even, let's say, lonely in working out their task, not knowing, feeling insecure maybe in how to do these things, if you do it right, struggling with technology, all these kind of things. So I would suggest to create an informal communication structure besides, let's say, well, then it becomes formal as well. But besides a formal structure of, let's say, using Hangouts and Forum, for example, that maybe that somebody is available at some point and you can text message with or whatever you choose to decide where people are comfortable with. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that discovery towards the end was quite an epiphany, quite an eye-opening event for the whole group to realize that whatever their personal dark moment was, actually they weren't alone, in that others had been having a dark moment at some point, even if it wasn't the same point. And we could all help each other more through those moments by just saying when you hit one. So I think what you've said is really important, because it's the other side of this really positive experience.
Yes.
Is maybe learning to say to the group when you're not comfortable.
Yes.
And it's not about some deficit on your part. It's what a challenging project is about. It's about as authentic and real world as you can get.
Yes.
To feel that way. So yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. I'd maybe forgotten about that.
Right.
Thank you. So what I'm getting from both of you is communicate, and communicate some more. To do it often, to do it live at least once a week, to offer encouragement to each other, to give insight, offer your insight to each other about what you think they're good at and what they're doing well. I'm just looking at my notes I've made as you've been talking. To decide what people actually want to get out of it for themselves, and to tailor their role accordingly. but to have a bit of a let's go for it attitude. Don't get too hung up on things.
No.
Don't worry about failure, because it's about the process.
Yeah.
It's about learning through this process, and
Yeah.
and I really think that what you've offered here is brilliant. And I'd actually like to add to that if anybody isn't being challenged and isn't feeling shaky at times, they're probably not learning.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think that you pay one heck of a price for this module not to learn on it. So,
Yes.
so when that moment comes, embrace it a bit, because it's a sign that you are hitting the new stuff.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. So can I come back and just ask, on the communications, because it's such a big deal, you guys are saying you use two different types of synchronous events. One was OU Live, the other was Hangouts. You used the forums. Did you only use the forums? Did you have any other ways of doing quick contact or anything like that?
We use Facebook as a substitute for the forums, and that probably did enable us to have that quick contact. It certainly took me a while to get into that sort of Facebook thing, but by the end, you know, I got it on my mobile phone, and I was there, you know, on trains and so on, responding to messages, and yeah, that was really good.
Okay. Did that also give you a much better sense of getting a response from people, of being in a conversation because of that near synchronicity?
It did, and even just having the like button, you know, that makes a massive difference. If you sort of for emotional support, almost really, just, you know, getting a like or a smiley face come back, that personally made a big difference to me.
Right. Thanks for that. It's actually very interesting for me over a number of years watching different groups, is that there isn't one way to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm really conscious, as you say, you used Facebook. Were there any drawbacks, by the way, to Facebook?
I think so we set up a private group. When I say we, somebody else set up a private group, because I had no idea how to do it. I think one thing that we didn't realize until almost really it was too late, was when we're creating the assignment at the end, it is possible within Facebook to create permalinks if you want to reference different conversations within your private group, but it took us ages to find that, and I think many people didn't. I think in the end probably didn't even realize, because we found it, you know, right up against the deadline. So it worked well, but it's just thinking about how are you going to reference all these conversations and so on afterwards.
Yeah, so that's something to bear in mind, whatever tool you're using, to make sure that you are organizing and archiving or doing something to make it easy to collect again afterwards. Yeah. So also bear in mind, some tools will allow you to tag conversations, to add labels, and some clever labels or a search facility or something can make a difference. Yeah. Ralph, what did you guys use? It was mostly the forums and the live sessions, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And I think a few times Twitter, but no, let's say the dominant communication tools were the forum and the Hangouts. And let's say later on in the process, we noticed as well, when there were more people online and the forum worked as well, kind of a chat. It went very fast, especially at the end, which was also really nice, because you get some sense of presence. People of the group are there, or if they're not there, an hour later or 1.5 hours later, somebody popped in and wrote something or responded. So it worked very well, but the same what Gresham is saying, that the threads can become very long and it's difficult to, let's say when you read it, you can scan very quickly, not a problem at all. let's say in 30 seconds, you know exactly what the conversation is about, and sometimes I don't know how it works, but your eye are picking the keywords, and it goes. But for the let's say the end assignment, the reflective writing, it is difficult sometimes to get things back. Yeah. But on the other hand, you don't need to put your paper full with references of say that everything is evidence that supports something you want to say. So in the end, you've got it quite. You have the story clear, what it was all about, what you were doing, and you have to construct the story in, let's say, 1,500 words or 2,500. I can't remember what it was, and you know whereabout in a certain forum things were said. So in the end, it will work out.
Just so that others know, that final TMA is actually a structured narrative of sorts about the process. That's why we're also saying it is about the process. And it is structured because it's a way of reporting a process for another team to come and take a look at afterwards and know where the pitfalls lie and what worked and what to repeat. So you're given the structure, you're given the whole template for it, so that the reason we're looking at finding evidence in your communications later is just if you're looking for evidence to back up that something did or didn't work. The easiest way is to go back to your own communications and pull something out.
Yes.
I'm listening to you guys and I'm thinking, and someone from the year before you tweeted me earlier, Mandy Honeyman. She's tweeted under her business, her consultancy. And she shared with us her organization chart, the Gantt chart that she set up for this process, for this whole learning design task. And she's offered that anybody can copy it. It's on Twitter, and it's on our hashtag, and you just change the columns. So, and it's a Gantt chart, so it's a way of actually organizing who does what when, and that it gets done by the right dates. It's a project management tool, in effect. But I was, sorry, now I've lost my train of thought. There's so much happening here. Mandy, in fact, was pointing out to me that there are new tools as well, like Slack. So over and above Facebook and Twitter, it might be worth exploring them. So I'll have a think about it, and maybe we can drag a Slack user into a Hangout to discuss its options and possibilities. But I think what you've both offered has been helpful in this regard. We know what we've got to watch out for then. Just checking. Yeah, in fact, that's exactly what the kinds of questions that are coming up is, what are the best methods for communicating, because there seem to be so much to choose from. And you guys are saying Facebook worked well for the synchronicity and the sense of presence. Forums worked well because it's a central point, I guess.
Yeah.
So that helps as well. And in fact, if you couple the forums with the OU Anywhere app, then you can also click through very easily and be mobile with that too.
Yes.
Just having a look to see if there are any more questions coming up. Did that answer the which methods are best for communicating? Does that give you something to look at? Babi, does that help at all? Right, and yes, we will. I was hoping to actually say which group is in which this morning, but today has kind of run away with me, so it's going to have to be tomorrow. But would you care to tell everyone what topics you did, just before we close off? What topics you did and how you felt about those topics?
So I did digital storytelling, which I was quite ambivalent about initially. I can't remember exactly what choice it was. It wasn't my first choice, but actually, once you get going, actually, it doesn't really matter because there's so much scope to set the context in the way that you want. And I suppose the final thing I would say there around that is that in the early weeks, there's a process about setting the context and developing personas and establishing concerns and forces. I'd encourage people to put some effort into those early weeks. These are the details that bring the project to life. What we found later on in the project was that actually we'd been a little bit lightweight in this area, to the extent that we'd picked an institution and there'd been to use as our sort of straw institution, and we found that we were working with different institutions because we hadn't been quite clear. Different members were working with different institutions because we hadn't been quite clear over which institution it was. So some good groundwork in those early weeks can really help. Ralph.
Yeah, I was in a group about reflective learning, and we were creating a reflective digital diary training package. It was, I think, one of the topics I chose. I don't think it was my first topic, but I can't remember that. For me, it was quite an experience to learn to deal with, let's say, technologies like Google Hangouts, for example. In the beginning, I find it quite difficult. I don't know why if I'm using it now. And to work with, let's say, in a distributed team with people who are everywhere. Let's say I'm in Amsterdam, others were in England, and one was in Abu Dhabi. It was very interesting to do that. I think we went very well through the whole process. What we didn't do well, what was difficult in the end, was the theoretical part, the evidence, the theory you use to design your, let's say, how you want people to learn part, which we did not take enough, I think, pay enough attention to, or work it out that well, that it really got, let's say, in the stream of the process and on creating things. And also coming back to communication, I think what I wrote down here is at some point to be very critical, to look very careful at what is on the table, and are we understanding? Do we give the same meaning to what is written? Because, for example, for us in the end, there was in the last week or last 2 weeks somewhere, there was a discussion about an ethical something that has to do with ethics, and apparently we had a complete different point of view on what was on the meaning we gave to that certain thing, and that needed to be discussed. If we were all more critical on that and bring it up, then it wouldn't have happened. So I think it's very important to keep in contact with each other about, do we understand the same thing? And if you're, let's say, at work, you meet someone, and that's what one of my fellow students said. You meet around the water cooler or the coffee machine, and you discuss things. That's how it goes in my work as well. But here you don't have that coffee machine, so you have the hangout sessions and the forum. So you have to be far more assertive to bring things on the table. And that is also something you can, well, practice, see how it works. And when things are very clear, it makes it easier to go through the next steps.
I think, yeah, that making sure that you are sharing the same vision from early on,
Yeah.
and what you and Ralph are both saying really dovetails perfectly, doesn't it? It's make sure that you're sharing the same vision, put in the work, make sure that you meet in those early weeks regularly to work this through.
Yeah.
And you've raised a point, Ralph, that I think is quite a hard one to understand until it's gone wrong. So I'm glad that you've raised it, about the theoretical framework, the stuff we do in Block 1 about types of learning and learning theories, and making sure
Yes.
that you know which one of them you have in mind as you go forward in your design, so
Yes.
that you have a coherent approach to design.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
that's actually a point that I'd forgotten myself. That does come up, doesn't it, time and time again.
Yes.
So if you settle that at the same time as you're sharing that vision, then the path is much clearer going forward. But having said all that, current groups are going to have their own issues.
Yes, probably.
And it's part of the learning. It's the only way to do it, isn't it? So yeah, we're just smoothing a few of them away with this chat. Would either of you say, as a final kind of question, that, bearing in mind the shared vision issue in the early weeks, was the design process entirely linear, or do you think that you have to be prepared to be a little bit iterative with some of the aspects?
I would say iterative. Our team was very goal driven, and I think because of the goal drivenness, let's say only heading from, we were focused on coming from A to B, and we were not looking back. And I would suggest to look back at some point. Even if you're also, let's say, a goal-driven team, you can maybe plan it that at some point you look back to, let's say, in the 6 or 7 weeks you have for this project, 2 times plan to look back. And does everything fit? Is everything clear for each other? Do you understand the same things you're busy with? So I would say it's a bit of both, but certainly as well iterative.
I'd agree with that. We someone on a different OU module gave me some advice around projects, which was to move forward relentlessly. So the team, it helps the team if they accept that you're going to move forward week by week and keep going forward relentlessly. And that, I think that was good advice 90% of the time. But there is this danger, as Ralph says, that if you keep doing that, then actually you miss the shared vision, and that actually this process in the real world, I think, would work. The sort of iterative review and modification and going back would be very important. I think we struggled to have that time in our block last time to go back and do that iteration. But I think most of us, by the time in our group, would have liked the opportunity to do that by the time we got to the end. But I guess that's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're saying maybe a 3rd point and a 2/3 point review session. Okay. I think that's a very good addition. Yeah. I think you have given us loads to think about. So I'm going to make a final call for any questions out there before we let the experienced hands.
I might bring up something as well. Another point which could be interesting is that if at some point your deciding to create, for example, a PowerPoint presentation or a SlideShare presentation or a video. We actually, each of these forms of presenting something or showing something has its own aims, its own goals, what you want to reach. And in the end, you also have to be very critical if that specific medium or tool is the right tool for something you want to bring across. For example, a SlideShare presentation is very interesting to bring knowledge across. A video can be interesting to bring knowledge across, but is far more interesting, for example, could be far more interesting, for example, to work on attitude, on some attitude elements, by putting, for example, a role model in. And then you come to a theory of how to use role models for your videos. I would suggest that for each, let's say, artifact you're designing or want to make, when it comes to multimedia, for example, create the aims. Think of, is this knowledge? Do you want a discussion? Then you don't make a video. If you want a discussion, if you want to work on attitude with people, you can make a video. But within that video, you have to work, for example, with a role model. And that role model doesn't have to do everything perfectly well, because then people don't like the role model anymore. So these things, you can also find a lot of literature about how to design, what can help you in designing, let's say, certain things, certain outings of multimedia.
Okay, so don't just grab for any kind of media, but consider the pedagogical aspects and what it is that piece of media is supposed to be doing.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's not just prettifying the website for the sake of it to throw a resource in there. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Gresham, could I ask you to take this one? Is time management a big issue?
Yes, it's a huge issue, I would say. You have relatively few weeks to get through this work. I bet most of the people who are doing the work will be holding down a full-time job or other commitments at the same time as doing the OU course. And so time management, really important. I would say prioritize those live weekly sessions. Certainly in our case, every time something went wrong or somebody didn't understand, it could be traced back to not being at a live session or a technology issue, meaning not being able to hear, all these sorts of things. So and then open and honest communication about what can be done and when, and clear planning about who, and accountability about who's going to do what.
Yes. Okay. So it's that plan, commit, deliver.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for that. And Ralph, what happened with your projects once they were completed? I'm throwing this at you, but actually perhaps I should have answered this one. What happened with your projects once they were completed?
This project, you mean?
Yeah.
For the OU. Well, I moved on to the next part. That was the first. But I'm using elements out of what I've learned. I'm using it in my current work, actually every day. So it gave me a lot of to think about and a lot of tools to work with and to make it my own. I can't say that I made everything my own during the 7 weeks, because the 7 weeks go very fast. And like Gresham said, we all are busy. We have jobs, and you have to, let's say, deliver in a certain period of time. But afterwards, it is very useful for me in my daily work on designing big programs, design programs, let's say nationwide healthcare, and also for projects I'm in for developing countries, starting off with some e-learning. Yeah, it helps a lot. It really helps a lot. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I just further to that, the projects are still available online, and when we actually get to starting the process, I will share the links to both of these teams because they are definitely worth looking at. Particularly now that you've heard something of the process, you can take a look and see how that translates. And I think that would be a really useful thing to do. So I will share links to both of them. And over the years, there have been a number of students who have taken elements of what they've done and converted it into a part of a bigger project that they've subsequently worked on. So it's good to hear the same thing continuing. So that's fantastic. I think that was the last of the unanswered questions. There's been a wonderful person going through and marking it up for me in the doc once we've covered them. And I was busy typing this answer, but I'll just address it verbally if I can as well. Someone's asked if we could possibly put all these sage words into text for those who can't hear, and I wanted to say that one of the reasons I'm using this tool is because theoretically I can then have it transcribed by the YouTube tool directly. It's not good, but it'll be. In addition, the very first group ever to survive this process shared a whole batch of tweets when the very next cohort was starting. And you guys saw them last year as a story file. And what I'll do is I'll put that story file out as well, because it'll capture also some other aspects and thoughts as well.
Yeah.
And gives a good diverse base. All right, so I think, has anybody got anything else they want to ask, raise, or share? Because I think this is almost too much for everybody to take in at this stage. It's so good. Is that it for questions? I'm just checking the Twitter feed. Actually, I haven't been there for a few minutes, but that wasn't the primary. Nope, that's it. Gresham, do you have any final parting thoughts to share with us?
I think, I suppose the final thing I would say is that I've completed my master's now with the OU, and of all of the bits, the thing that stands out most is this project that's coming up, and I encourage you to throw yourselves in and have a great time with it, take some risks and enjoy it. I think the next block, if it's learning analytics after this, is, I think most people in our group found that absolutely fascinating, and so throw yourself into this, and then the final block hopefully will be really interesting, and then the job will be done. You will be through the course. So just go for it.
Brilliant. Ralph, final thoughts, wisdom?
No, I think everything is said. Like Gresham says, just go for it and go with the flow. Take some risk. Learn what you yeah, take what you can take out of it. And I wish everyone good luck and also lots of fun with this this blog. Yeah.
Guys, thank you. I've actually gotten stuff out of this myself, so I'm hoping that that everyone else got the same. I've seen quite a few comments already saying thank you. That it's been really worthwhile hearing what you've got to share. So thanks a million. This makes the process easier for everybody.
Good.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.
Thank you.
And
Thank
thank
you.
Great time.
everyone else who's been watching. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Take care. See
You
you on
too.
Twitter.